Hey book lovers, welcome back to my channel. I am here to talk about some books that I've recently read, and I have to say I've been kind of on a reading kick the last month or two, and then from like March through May I was really in a reading slump. So I'm very glad to be excited about reading again. I go through these phases where I read everything I can get my hands on and read very quickly, and then I read nothing at all for months, and that's just the way it goes. But I don't even know how many books. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 books since the last time we have sat down and chatted together. So I'm excited to jump in. The first 4 of them I'm going to talk about together because it's a series, and it is the Housemaid series by Freida Mcfadden. So there's 3 novels and 1 novella that is in this series. Now, I had read The Housemaid a couple of years ago and absolutely loved it, but I hadn't read the second or third book, nor had I read the novella, and I wanted to read those, but I knew I probably needed to go back and reread the first one, The Housemaid, just because I couldn't remember all the details of the novel, and I'm glad I did. I'm glad I read it again because I think it set me up well for the rest of the series. So I won't go into too many details about like the second or third book, but I'll kind of tell you about the first one. This whole series is really about it's a psychological thriller type novel, very fast paced. Main character in all of these novels is Millie, and in The Housemaid, Millie is a maid for the Winchesters, Nina and Andrew Winchester. And she goes to this house, and it's a live-in position, and Nina, the wife, is not very nice to her. She seemed all nice and sweet during the interview process, but once Millie moves in, it seems like Nina has maybe some issues. And then there's a really handsome husband, Andrew. And the twist at the end of this book is crazy. Like, when I first read this, I was shocked. I gave this a 5 stars. I still consider it a 5-star read. I thought it was an amazing action-packed thriller. The second one, The Housemaid's Secret. So this is the first time I've read that. It continues along with Millie's story and follows her in a different scenario. I liked this one a lot too. I didn't like the ending as much as I liked The Housemaid, but I still really enjoyed this book. What did I give The Housemaid's Secret? I think I gave it a 4 stars. Yep, 4 stars. It is fairly similar to The Housemaid kind of in premise, but it's a fun, action-packed thriller type of book. The third book, The Housemaid is Watching, I still liked it. I gave it a 3 stars, but it didn't stand out to me near as much as the first 2 novels in the series. It, again, continues to follow Millie, but it's years later. It's like 10 or 15 years later after the first 2 books take place. And this one has some crime in it. Obviously, there's some thriller aspects to it. And the ending, I loved the ending. I loved the twist to this novel. But most of it was very kind of family drama, and that wasn't my favorite. I was hoping for a little bit more action-packed. So still a good book, but I gave it a 3 stars. And comparing to the first 2, wasn't my favorite of the series, but it was a good ending to the story. And then The Housemaid's Wedding, that's the novella. You're supposed to read it in between the second and the third book. There's a little bit of mystery to it, but it's kind of a fluff read. It's cute. It's, like how we call the ACOTAR novella a Christmas special. It's kind of a similar vibe, just a fluff piece in the middle that kind of just adds to their story. So gave that a 3 stars. Overall, I really enjoyed this series, and if you like fast-paced thrillers, I would highly recommend the series as a whole. And honestly, just Freida Mcfadden in general. I do like a lot of her books. The next book that I read, most of them all are on the mystery thriller, psychological thriller genre. So the next one is Lisa Jewell's newest novel, and this one's called Don't Let Him In. Now, I've been very hit and miss with Lisa Jewell. There have been many books that I've loved from her, but a lot that I also haven't loved. And she's an auto-buy author for me because I really enjoyed some of her novels. So I definitely was looking forward to this book. This, I don't even know how best to describe this book. This follows many different characters with many different, in many different times. And that's probably the reason I didn't love this book. The content of it was really good, but there was a lot to keep up with. You were constantly changing times, you were changing characters that you were following and stories that you were following. So for me, it was hard to keep up with. I listened to so many audiobooks, and this was a hard audiobook to listen to. I feel like maybe I would have been better physically reading this, but it just, yeah, it was hard to keep up with. But essentially it's about this mother and daughter who live together, and the husband, the father, he just passed away, and somebody reaches out by his, close to his funeral time via letter saying, a man saying, I knew your husband, he was a great man, I would love to come express my condolences, yada, yada, yada. And then the mom develops a relationship with this mystery man that had wrote the letter. You're also following other females that have husbands that disappear for days and turn off their cell phones, and they can't get a hold of them. And women trying to make excuses for the men in their lives when they disappear. And the daughter of, the mother-daughter duo, the daughter is not buying what this new man in her mother's life is really saying, not buying his intentions, and starts researching him. And essentially it's this big quest to kind of figure out, what are these men doing when they're not with their wives? It was a really good story. It, like I said, just bouncing between different timelines, and the so many different storylines was confusing for me. That is just me. It's gotten a lot of great reviews. I gave it a 3 stars. Not my favorite of Lisa Jewell's novels, but a good book nonetheless. Next, I did a reread of Assassin's Blade by Sarah J. Maas. I am definitely in the mood to do a reread of Throne of Glass, and so this first book is the prequel to Throne of Glass, or depending on who you are, some people say you should read this book third in the series. I actually preferred it first. I think reading it first for me helps you understand Selena as a main character, whereas when you just jump into Throne of Glass, you jump right into the story, and there really isn't a lot of context as to who Selena is, her background, things like that. So if you're wanting to read Throne of Glass, do your own research and figure out where best to put Assassin's Blade. But I have put it first, and so now I read the prequel, and now I am reading Throne of Glass again. So one of my favorite series. I finished it for the first time last year, and so I'm excited to do a reread in general, just because this book has so much, or this series has so much context, and it's so detailed, and you have nuggets of information here and there, and the first time you read it, you're just trying to process most of it, right? And so the second time I'm reading through it, I'm really hoping to pick up new pieces of knowledge that I haven't had before. I still do that with Harry Potter, and I have read the Harry Potter series more times than I can count, at least 10 times each book. And every time I read them, there are little nuggets or bits and pieces that I had forgotten about or maybe missed originally. And so I do love doing a reread of some of my favorite, especially fantasy series. So 5 stars to Assassin's Blade. If you're looking for a great fantasy series, Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas. You're not going to be disappointed. Next, I read Out of Air by Rachel Reiss. This is about a group of 4 kind of teenager young adults, and they love scuba diving. They love being out on the water in the ocean, and the cover, like everything about it, really drew me in. Well, they find some treasure one day, some old sunken coins, and after that happens, some kind of bad things start to happen to them. They one day go scuba diving, and then they also find this like underwater cave, but this underwater cave is said to be kind of haunted. Like, you're not supposed to breathe the air of the cave, that things happen to you. There's a lot of folklore around it, and they find this cave and then they breathe in the air and things start happening. So it's kind of a mix of, it's like young adult relationships and, you know, friendships, as well as a lot of talks about the ocean, which, you know, obviously I really love, and a little bit of kind of fantasy, folklore, myths, that type of novel. Really interesting. Was it amazing? No, wasn't my favorite book ever, but I think it's a fun summer read. If you've ever been interested in like pirate treasure or anything like that, then I would highly recommend reading it. I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. And again, just the cover, it's so pretty. Next, kind of on the same ocean theme, this is Beach Reads and Deadly Deeds by Allison Brennan. So this is about a woman named Mia who, her boss sends her on this like luxury vacation to this all-inclusive resort down in the islands somewhere. And, you know, she's really after a one-night stand. She is a workaholic and she loves to read. So she's kind of got her nose into books and stuff. She doesn't have a husband, and she really just wants to have some fun on this trip, let loose, meet people, etc. Well, at the same time, a guest a few days before Mia's arrival has disappeared, and Mia gets involved with this man, the bartender at the resort, and there's kind of a little bit of flirtation going on there. And then the missing woman that disappeared from the resort a few days prior shows up dead on the beach. And so Mia also kind of plays detective and really tries to put the pieces together of the guest at this resort to figure out what happened to this woman and how did she die. This was a really cute, like, cozy mystery. If you like mystery thriller that have that cozy atmosphere, it's definitely got the red herrings. She's trying to put the pieces together. She's like a modern day Angela Lansbury trying to figure out what happened to this woman. Plus there's the romance aspect. There's some family dynamic talks in this book that's really interesting, and she forms a relationship with this like younger girl, and this kind of sweet friendship. It was cute. It was nothing amazing, but if you like a cozy beach read, this was a perfect kind of cozy mystery beach read. So I ranked this a 3 out of 5 stars. Next, I read Nothing Ever Happens Here by Seraphina Nova Glass. This is essentially following 2 women. We have Shelby and Mackenzie. Shelby is a new mom to 2 twin girls, and Mackenzie is her best friend. And one day Shelby goes into the restaurant that her best friend Mackenzie and her husband own, and Shelby walks in on somebody in the restaurant, like trying to steal. This man that's in the restaurant basically does some things to Shelby and essentially leaves her for dead. Shelby is able to escape that and is able to recover, but she has a lot of trauma because they don't know who this person was. Her kids were outside in the car while all this was happening, and so she has a lot of anxiety and is trying to grapple with that, plus just not knowing who this person was. And, you know, this person's familiar to her, but she can't put a finger on who this is. Then on the other hand, you have Mackenzie. Mackenzie's husband, Leo, never came home one night. He was on his way home and then he disappeared. And Mackenzie is trying to trace down what happened to Leo. Where is he? Is he the man that she thought he was, or not? One of my favorite parts of this book is Shelby works at this like retirement community, and essentially it just felt so homey. All of the people that were in this retirement community and her relationships with them, and the individuals that live at this retirement community start trying to piece together the mystery, and they start a podcast, and they're kind of doing their own amateur sleuthing to figure out who attacked Shelby and like where Leo is. So it was a fun book. It was good. The twist, I was like, it was okay. I wasn't over the moon about the twist, but it was a good book. Definitely kept me entertained. I got through it really fast. And like I said, I loved kind of the amateur sleuthing podcast part of the retirement community. I thought that was just a fun part to this novel. So I gave this a 3 out of 5 stars. And the last novel that I have to share with you guys today is definitely the winner of the last few weeks. I loved this book a lot. I gave it a 4 stars. This is We Used to Live Here by Marcus Kliewer. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. I read this book, and I physically read this book. And I very, very rarely physically read a book. And very rarely do I physically read a book as fast as I read this one. It was a book I did not want to put down. This is a horror, and it's one of those twisty novels that kind of leaves clues in the pages. It makes me think a little bit of House of Leaves. If you're familiar with that novel, it is kind of a book that leaves clues in different chapters that you can kind of piece together. The ending of this is really up for your interpretation. So I know that some people will love that and some people will absolutely hate that. I, in this case, actually really liked it. But if I searched on TikTok and YouTube, etc., theories about this book, that there would be a ton of people talking about what they think happened in this novel, because you end it thinking, but what happened? Like, you don't know. So, you know, what's the truth? This side or this side? Like, who do you believe? And I actually really liked that. So let me tell you what this book is even about. So this is about a couple, Charlie and Eve. Eve is home alone one night. They just moved into this new house. Charlie is out doing something, and a knock on the door comes, and she goes and opens the door, and there's a family, husband and wife and 3 kids standing on the porch. And the husband says, I used to live here, you know, when I was a kid. I would love to show my family the house. You know, like, can we come in for 10-15 minutes and just like walk through the house? Is that okay? Eve is really not sure what to do. She doesn't want these people in her house, but she feels bad saying no, so she lets them in. Well, as soon as she lets them in the house, things start happening. They go on the tour, and then they're all getting ready to leave, and the youngest daughter disappears. They can't find her. So they spend all this time looking for her, and essentially this family gets snowed in with Eve and Charlie. Charlie eventually comes home, but gets snowed in with them overnight. And that's when things are getting really weird. Like, windows that Eve thought were stained glass are now no longer stained glass. Like, the house is changing. people are changing. She can't get rid of these people out of the house. You know, she looks around the houses next to her, and the numbers that she thought the houses were are no longer. And there seems to be kind of two realities of people. I don't know how best to describe it. Is she seeing ghosts? Is Eve going crazy? Is the house haunted and twisting reality in certain ways? It's just one of those books. I don't know how to describe it. You just need to read it. If you're into horror and into books that kind of leave you second guessing and leave you thinking, you've got to read We Used to Live Here. It was so good. And it, like I said, it's one of those that at the end, I was like, I still don't even know what I believe, like what the truth is. It leaves you on one of those cliffhangers, and it's one that you just want to keep turning the pages. So enjoyed this book a lot. Like I said, I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. Highly, highly recommend, and definitely my best of the last month or so since I have last filmed my book video. But that is it. Those are all of my recent reads. So 10 books that I have gotten through. I'd really love to know what you have been reading lately, anything that you would recommend, or do any of these books sound like something you want to put on your TBR? I would love to know. Thank you so very much for watching, and I will see you in my next one. Bye.